I had a love affair with chicken pizza crust last night. You want to hear about it?
Yeah, tell me about it.
Oh my God, dude. So I've been seeing like on TikTok reels all over the place that there's like this healthy alternative to traditional crust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get like, whether you're getting like a Domino's pizza or like a frozen pizza from the grocery store or whatever. And this thing came up and I'm like, dude, I gotta do this. I absolutely have to do this. So yesterday or the day before, I got a pound of ground chicken breast, right? And put it in a bowl and spiced it up the way they said, threw a few eggs in it and stuff. Baked that at like 400 degrees for 25 minutes and take it out, let it rest, put pizza sauce and cheese on top of it and put it back in for another 10 minutes at 420. Mm-hmm. Dude, it was so delicious. So flippin' delicious. I only had half of it and it was super filling, super satisfying. I mean, definitely didn't taste like traditional pizza, right, but it was something in between chicken and pizza crust, if that makes any sense. Because there's like,
pretty cool.
There's like garlic powder in it, some oregano and eggs and a little bit of salt and stuff. And dude, it was
so is it kind of like chicken quiche with sauce on it, kind of?
No, because I know what you mean. Quiche would taste more like it's got more of a spongy feel.
Give me a second.
Oh, you got food. That's right. Yes, this is a working podcast today. We have this very finite amount of time this week, so Tom needs to eat.
Speaking of food.
Yeah, I was just explaining
to everyone in podcast land.
Oh yeah, I just explained to the audience that we have a working podcast today because we have limited time this weekend.
Limited time.
So we're firing out one.
That sounds good though.
Yeah. Oh, dude. So like, as soon as this is done, I'm going downstairs and reheating it. That's my lunch. It's just, dude. And you check out the macro. At least the protein macro. Half the pizza with the cheese and everything. It's like 50 grams of protein. Some ridiculous amount of protein. So what are we eating today? What's going on?
Omelet action. Iced coffee.
Excellent.
So what do we got going on, Timmy? You got in Music Land.
Music Land? So Complexity is published. It's not out on the website, but it will be this week.
That's a new album. Is that the
Meditation? Second meditation.
Okay.
Yeah. So experimental. It has, some movement patches. It has some traditional stuff, but it also has some very interesting. It's just not normal.
Right.
If that makes any sense. It's not normal meditation. I have to push the envelope. Otherwise, everything just kind of blends and it turns into like the same thing over and over again. And I don't want to do that to my audience. I want them to have an option to draw off of other things. Ooh, look at that.
Avocado.
Nice.
Chicken. And it's like a California omelet.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I gotta say I'm impressed with your avocado consumption. It's really good mono and polyunsaturated fats. It's good for your system, Oh,
yeah.
This is turning into a health podcast.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Okay, so you got that published. What does that put you up to in regard to total songs published?
860.
860. So we're closing in on number 900.
Yep. And I was showing people this past week this, which is basically a 2-page of 15 different genres that I have at least a couple tunes ready to roll. And this week, what am I calling it? I have to switch tabs for a second. It's Ideation Week. So every day this week, normally I have the Monday, Friday, but every day this week, I am jumping into creating some new stuff all week. What I'm trying to do is generate like anywhere from like 20 to 50 ideas this week. And just at least 5 a day, but I'm trying to just look into these different genres this week and just fire out a ton, like a boatload of ideas, so that going into August and September, I've got a bunch of starting points that'll get me at least over the 900 hump and get me that much closer to pinging the 1,000 at the end of the year. And I published a quick little update on Facebook today because I got one of those, Facebook throws in your thread. Hey, you remember this from 4 years ago? Dude, it was like the second album I published popped up in my feed from 4 years ago. And I'm like, dude, that album, Circumambient, feels like it's forever ago. Forever. Right. But it's only been 4 years. And it was like my second major publish, So I talked that up a little bit and put a link in there for people to go back and listen to it. But it'd be interesting to hear and look at the projects and how complicated, or more likely how uncomplicated the projects were in the beginning. Because what I do now, as opposed to what I did 4 years ago, like vastly different. My workflow and everything else, and how I manage the projects and how I build songs. Like, it's just evolved. I mean, sheer volume, you know?
Well, I think that's great, man. I mean, you got to evolve. Speaking of which, we have a joint project we can't talk too detailed about, but we had our final shoot for it. We can tell you that it's vaguely sort of documentary, kind of paranormal, and that we had our final shoot, was it last weekend?
Yeah, week ago Saturday. So a week ago yesterday.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. The day before, we did this huge walk in Central Park and actually got footage, believe it or not, for the doc during that day as well. So we got that going on, and I will tell you, it's good to be shooting again. To some degree, it's still, I'm 48. My body definitely feels different than it did when I was in my 20s or 30s when I would shoot. You could eat worse, you could sleep less, you could like drink alcohol and stuff like that, recover, and like none of that's possible now. But I think the quality of life is better on those shoots because you're being very careful, and you're getting the sleep and you're doing all the right things. I don't know. It's just,
well, your focus and your mind is in the present moment more, I think. At least it is for me, dude. Not only with the music, but in life in general, but even on the shoot. Like,
look at that cheese pull. Damn.
My God.
Damn.
You just said healthy.
Yeah, that's true.
You just said healthy. Oh, man.
It's a little
so
cheese.
Funny. Cheese is not unhealthy. It's just the amount of cheese that we consume that's the question. But yeah, man. No, I get it. Like, it is different filtering in like what we're doing today, filling in the things that we want to do into the schedule that we have and the complex schedules that we have. It's not easy. And most people, I think, will just abandon a project or whatever because I just can't seem to make the time for it, blah, blah. Again, it comes back down to prioritizing what's important to you, right? If it's important, you're going to find time. And if it means you have to do things in little chunks, you do 45 minutes here, 2 hours there, skip a couple days in the process with something, like, dude, you have to, if you want to move forward and succeed at the things that are important to you, you have to fit it into your life. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, well, I think documentary in particular for me, at least the first half of my career was all narrative filmmaking, mostly kind of horror and comedy and adventure and stuff like that. And that was great, but just with the situation I am in now, the idea of being able to take a huge block of time off, even if it's just 1 week off from work and shooting the weekends, like being away from my family,
right?
It just like kind of, it would be like trading one for the other, It wouldn't be
with a
great.
6-year-old, that's just not a reality,
No, I wouldn't want to do that. You know what I mean? So documentary is a really cool way. It's like we can plan stuff out. I can shoot. I think in total I had to add up the shoots for this shoot. I did one shoot in the park, then I did one with Gary, then we did a second Gary one on the island, I can't say. Yeah. And then you did the Diane one down in Florida, and then the last one was just now. So this project, which is a pilot, so it's about a half hour, was 5 shoots over the course of, like, really spread out. But it just goes to show you can absolutely do it. It's not such a huge deal. And the cool thing is, for this kind of thing, you can just plan things out. Like, we had my buddy Carlos Freer came out and did drone shots for us one shoot. And you can, because it's just one day, it's really manageable. It's just like plan the day, we'll get this person here. We'll get this, we pulled my buddy Paul in last time, so it's been kind of cool,
What's neat about it, dude, is that, like, when you stop thinking about the big picture and you just deal with it in chunks like this, like, okay, I got to hit this. Okay, we got to hit the drone footage. We got to hit this. We got to do this interview, this, blah. And, like, you just deal with it as chipping away at, like, a stone, or, like, it's like cutting down a tree. in a neighborhood, right? You can't just fell the thing. You're going to take somebody's house out, right? So you got to like lop off the branches at the top and take it off in chunks, drop it to the ground. And as you're pulling off the branches and stuff, it gets easier and easier because the task gets less and less complicated, right? And then eventually you can fell the remainder of it because it's not going to hit anything. Well, it's very similar to what we're talking about. Like you chip away at it, you take care of like some of the different parts and pieces, then eventually it starts to fall into place, and then you just knock out the remainder and boom, it's over. But if you think of it in the big picture, trying to knock it out all at once, it seems like an impossibility because it just is. You know what I mean? You can't do it all at once. You don't have the time to do it all at once. It's maddening. You know what I mean? Like it's maddening to think of it that way.
Also, with documentary, you often need time. Unlike narrative, where ideally the script is like rock solid before you start shooting. Although, admittedly, there have been films that I've directed where the script was not rock solid. But in general, the ones I'm more proud of, those, had pretty solid scripts. But with the process with documentary, and this is the same with Video Dreams as it is with the new one we're doing, is that you do a ton of research on the subject matter. You figure out what is the most interesting and how to build a story out of that. You boil those events down. Then you generate questions. You interview one of the main subjects. Then you see what the answers are. And often the answers are not exactly what you're expecting. You boil that stuff down. I just go with the most interesting. What is the most fascinating to me?
Right.
I'll take those. Then I can take those bits, generate questions. Then I can give you the questions. Then you can go to your subject and they'll be directly responding to the best parts of what I gathered.
Right.
So it's like I don't know if this is like very obvious to people or not. I'm not really sure, but it's something that for me was sort of inevitable.
Yeah. Well, I think acting on your excitement is ideal. You know what I mean? Like doing that in all these cases that's what's going to resonate with the audience because it's exciting to you and it comes forward in the production, whatever it is that we're working on, then, if it's authentic, it's going to come through that way. It's going to come through that it excited you. It's going to come through that it's something that we're like, oh, this brought up these other questions. And so we decided to go down this rabbit hole and this is what we discovered. It's following your discovery as opposed to shoehorning a narrative into place are two totally different things. And I think the latter can derail a documentary style narrative for sure, because you have a preconceived idea of what's going on. But if you're there for the ride and you just do the interviews, you do the thing, you do the research, and it starts to evolve into a story that you never intended or never understood was going to be the case, it's even more interesting because
and it's more truthful. And I guess I have started projects where I have a preset idea. I've done some research. I have an opinion about it. And then I've interviewed people and their experience or their knowledge base totally contradicts that. And I'll throw out my preconceived notion and then I'll build from there. But there are a few times in my projects where things have taken a turn. It's like, oh, that's not quite what I thought, how things went down. But I don't understand why you would ride that rail even if you're going in the wrong direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's a responsibility as a filmmaker, producer, director to listen to those cues and just ride the wave, because that's true to life. It's true to form. Like if you were in traffic per se, right? And you were headed to some event and you didn't want to be late and Waze or something redirected you. Well, are you going to be stubborn and go the way that you know? Or are you going to be open to the idea that this alternate route, even though it doesn't make a lot of logical sense, is going to get you to where you want to go faster and you're not going to miss anything? Well, it's very similar with this kind of narrative style, in documentary. Follow the leads, follow the information, follow the interest, follow the excitement. You go down those roads and it's going to bear fruit. Whereas if you just hold the line and you're really stubborn about it, number one, you're not going to learn anything. And number two, I question very strongly if it's going to be an even interesting story to tell at that point. You know what I mean?
Well, look at I could give an example to some degree. The death of the bit. Well, I got two. One is beta versus VHS. A lot of the times the argument was like VHS, you could have adult content, beta you couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then it had the 8-hour recording time. The beta had a shorter recording time. The adult content thing it's often cited as a reason, but apparently that actually doesn't really work out to be a major factor. Okay. It's not a non-issue, but one of the ones that's mostly overlooked is VCR was 50% of the cost.
Okay.
So it was
next to a beta deck?
Next to a beta deck. The actual device to play the thing was 50%. And some of the research I did indicated that was probably one of the biggest factors. Whereas people were always like, 8 hours versus 6 hours or whatever, and the adult content. It's like, no, dude, like no one wanted to pay like $800 for a beta deck. Right.
Yeah, in the 80s, early 80s.
Yeah.
That was a small fortune, Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's that. And again, I'm not saying those other things are non-issues, but like, you hear other people talk about this stuff. They think that's like the silver bullet, adult content and the longer running time. I mean, those are, I think they're citing those because those are the one-ups of VHS because it wasn't quality. Obviously, beta was far superior quality, but then what are you going to do? You go to, well, I want the higher quality. Okay, let's go to the electronics store. Wait, it's like almost $1,000 a tax. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, right. Well, the same thing happened in the console video game industry when PlayStation came out with the PlayStation 3. That Christmas, it was like Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, and then PlayStation 3 was like further down the list somewhere. And the reason for that was everything else was priced accordingly. It was like in the $200 to $400 range. And the PS3 was like $700-800 because it was the only console that had a Blu-ray player on it. It was like, next gen compression format, everything. Like it was 4 or 5 years ahead of everything. Like people didn't even have a Blu-ray player at home, and if they did, they spent out the nose for it,
Yeah.
So similar thing. Like just because it's better doesn't mean it's accessible and consumers are going to grasp it because, maybe, technophiles are gonna, sure.
Yeah. I mean, and that was the case, right? It just didn't sell as well, even though like it was kind of a powerhouse for some of those games on PS3. You're like, what year did this come out? This is pretty good looking,
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. And the other example, doing the VHS Massacre docs was that people often cite sort of like Blockbuster being the main culprit for killing the video store or like the internet, kind of like torrenting and stuff like that. While those things are totally true, in the doc, talking to my brother Bruce and you, like the concept of rent track, I mean, it was complicated. The relationship that Blockbuster had with the studios, that's what did it. It wasn't the mere existence of a competing Blockbuster chain, a video store chain. It was the fact that Blockbuster would get all the titles for free and then split revenue.
Right. Just like they do with the theater, right? Like
just like do with the theater. And then what killed a significant amount of independent video stores that most documentaries that had come out never touched were probably the only ones who really talked about this was rent track. And that was like, in order for the mom and pops to compete with Blockbuster, because they had to pay out for every copy of Titanic. So they couldn't afford to do that. So rent track was a business that said, okay, we'll do the same thing. We'll give you these and then we'll split revenue. But then you pointed out that, because you worked in a video store who used rent track, you were saying the splits were horrible right in the beginning.
Oh God, the first 2 to 4 weeks they took and these numbers are probably not entirely accurate, but I want to say like 60-70% of the revenue from the rentals went to them within the first few weeks of release. Now, let's be clear about that. There's a difference. The rent track stuff was not what's considered sell-through. Now, people that don't understand the industry, sell-through is like big titles like Tom cited Titanic. That was probably a sell-through title because it was such a big movie and a big hit. You could literally, sell-through means when it's available to watch in a video store, it's also available at like Target and Walmart for a sell-through price, which is a retail price in like the $20 to $30 range. Whereas there's other titles that didn't get to that point, and those are the ones that Rent-Track typically provided, because those were like $70 a tape to buy wholesale. So there was this huge gouging by the industry to those mom and pop video stores that they're like, yeah, you want this thing? It's like $70. And you're like, I have to rent that at $3 a rental. I have to rent that's 25 times just to break even. It better be good. So then they only buy so many of it. And then this Rent-Track thing came along. It's like, hey, this is what we'll do. And then the math didn't math, you know, it just didn't add up.
And so that's not to say the presence of Blockbuster wasn't a major factor and torrenting wasn't a major factor. Of course it was. Yes. But some of these video stores, you could say, sped up their demise very quickly, where they just went to town on Rent-Track and their store was mostly Rent-Track. And then at the end of the month, they're realizing, like, we're not making anything, you know?
Yeah,
and
so those stores, they had to do stuff like, I don't know, sell Beanie Babies or get into Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Magic the Gathering and, you know, open up a case and have Charizard cards and stuff like that and sell them at, you know, full markup, like whatever Wizards of the Coast is saying a thing is worth, and like buy and sell games, like used games for, you know, Super Nintendo or you know, Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis games and stuff like that. Like there was all this other stuff that the mom and pops had to do just to stay relevant. And
a lot of this stuff was like before the internet was robust enough to have information on this kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think there's obviously business trade magazines and stuff, and there's several like video store magazines and stuff, but I was probably a lot of video store owners were just kind of shooting from their hip.
Yeah.
Saying, well, we're going to go crazy on candy.
Yeah.
We're going to make, you know, the entire front of the store candy, you know?
Yeah. And it's impulse stuff, right? It's just like what the grocery stores or whatever would do, you know, that kind of thing. And heavy markup, 200, 300, 400%, you know, on the way out the door. And it helped keep you viable for a while. But there was also a shift too, right? As the video store era started to wane and eventually evaporate and disappear, you know, Netflix kind of just filled in that gap. And people are like, what, for like $8 a month, I can just stream whatever I want, whenever I want to. And there's internet providers that have high enough bandwidth that it just doesn't suck. Okay, why don't I just do that instead? And now you don't have this huge library in your house. You can watch whatever you want when you want on demand. It basically took the on-demand aspect of cable and, you know, just gave it a shot of adrenaline. And now you can just watch any and all movies you've ever want to watch, you know, on demand. And like it just changed the rules. It changed the landscape.
Definitely changed the game, yeah. And I think, you know, you think about all the big studio films, the Marvel films and the, you know, Star Wars films and all this stuff. For the longest time, it was this big event thing. And typically on the streaming sites, like Disney Plus is brand new, you know? Yeah. I mean, it's not that old, but like so much of the problem was that like, yeah, you're paying all this money for these subscription sites. And really like any like highly in demand film, typically you don't have access to. You're going to pay. And that stuff is particularly annoying. You know, I think the average household spends something like $60 on streaming subscriptions.
I think that's low, personally.
Yeah. Well, it's gotta, because there's, yeah. It might be low for sure. It's probably closer to 100, like, you know, and anyway, but like, if you look at the, they're probably, if there's a big movie you wanted to see, more than likely, you probably have to pay out extra above and beyond. And so I think it just gets like super annoying where people are like, I'm paying for junk. And then I forget someone who was talking about that we've talked about this stuff for years and years, like the concept that Apple TV really makes phones and hardware. They don't have to make money off of streaming. Amazon sells products. They don't have to make money off of streaming. But one perspective I've heard that I didn't hear before, which was very interesting, is like even Netflix is more so in the business of, what's that called? FOMO.
A fear of missing out.
And really, they don't care if you watch this stuff. They just need to keep that carrot so you don't cancel. You know, they need the obligation.
This series is coming up. It's like, you don't want to cancel. Stranger Things is coming out this fall. right?
Yeah.
You don't want to cancel the next Karate Kid season's coming out. Well, I know that's over, but you know.
But and do we even watch it? Because I'll tell you, there's Steph and I we liked the first Squid Game because we liked it because Netflix didn't make it.
Right.
Okay. And then I think they bought it, and now they made season 2, which is not quite as good, I hear, but we didn't even finish that. You know, we watched 1 or 2 episodes and we just didn't have time, you know?
Yeah. One of the rare exceptions that they've made, and granted, it's not their, I don't believe it's their studio, but they've partnered with and paid a lot of money for, is Arcane. That animation and that storyline, season 1 and 2, are unbelievably incredible. They are just, they're on the same level for me as Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse or whatever, those 3 movies. Same level of production value, same level of music and storytelling, and pushing the envelope of animation styles that blend together. In fact, sometimes you feel like it's like some of the intros and stuff are like a music video. You know what I mean? Like, and it's experimental, and they're just playing around with these styles that cross over into each other. There's a general style for the whole series, but they play, and that sense of play is like, I feel like we're missing that. There's so many studios in Hollywood that just go super, super conservative and careful.
Well, I was talking to someone who I won't name, who, you know, is in the industry, and basically just said, like, we were talking about the role of the director, and it definitely has been my instinct that, and stories from people I've worked with in the past that have directed, like I used to work with this professor who directed 1 episode of Oz, and he was kind of called in for this 1 episode. Something happened, so he got to direct it. Well, the crew was so fine-tuned. The camera operators, director of photography, showrunner, producers, they were so fine-tuned. When the director kind of jumped aboard, there was very little room for him to actually be creative, and he had to really fight for this 1 shot, and they kind of fought him tooth and nail. He finally got the 1 shot. It's like a 3-second shot. He was really proud of it. I saw it. It wouldn't affect, you know, it was nice. I don't know how much it affected the entire storyline, but think about that. That's an hour-long episode. He probably made 1 actual choice about the shots. Wow. That he probably had to fight for. And a lot of the stuff was probably preconceived, you know, through, you know, there's a bona fide script or a possible storyboarding, light storyboarding maybe. And so, like...
But rigid, right? Like
very rigid, yeah. And it does make sense for TV, but it occurred to me, I wonder how much of that has pushed into the studio system, and the concept of the auteur in a major project is probably a nuisance, you know? So if you were doing a Marvel movie or something like that, that would probably be not helpful to have someone who really had their own vision, you know? Which just goes to show you, it's like, I hate to say it, but it does seem like a lot of like a non-creative person seems to be who they're looking for to helm some of these projects, almost like a project manager versus an auteur filmmaker. So then as an independent filmmaker, I'm like, that's more reason to just like make the films on your own and just stay out of it. I mean, it's good to climb that ladder and have that career if you want to do that. I mean, you may find after a few decades of doing it that you're like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'd be better off doing something else, you know?
Right. And of course, there's nuance too to this argument, because when you're talking about jumping in, like somebody jumping into 1 episode directorial role in some established IP, you're talking about the MCU, you're talking about Star Wars. Like there are criteria that need to be maintained. You can't just go completely off reservation and do like A, B, and C, and you know, for characters and stuff like that. There is a line that has to be maintained. That being said, though, how you get there should be part of the directorial process, right? And the freedom to do those kind of things. I always come back to, like, was it Scorsese that would let Jack Nicholson just keep going and let the take run?
Yeah.
And wait for the stuff.
Departed.
Wait for the gold, right? Because he would just keep going and keep iterating on whatever that scene was. And it could be 3 minutes after he was supposed to stop talking that he gets some like piece of magic. And you're like, I didn't expect that. Great. Capture that. But to what you were saying, I'm sure the person that you're referring to did not have that creative flow and flexibility, because those shoots and that particular episode shoot and everything had a tight schedule, and it was like there's really no room to play.
Yeah, I think it's inherently messy on one hand, because you hear about like the first Iron Man, you know, they claim that like a lot of the improv was Robert Downey Jr. and I believe it, you know, and he probably, but it's in the context of understanding the full story and playing within that. So the actor's able to get away with stuff, but then at the same time, there's all this messiness, like them having to reshoot things 2 or 3 or 4 times. Just so you know, like as an independent filmmakers, we can tell you that having additional shoots after principal photography is absolutely necessary. For us, we have more of an excuse because we shot Mark of the Beast in like 11 days.
Right.
And it was, I think, 10 days, and then the 11th day was like a month after, and that was like
those
John
are pickup
Gorman.
shots, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lee Radzawan and Dick Bolin were doing a shot of the car, a shot of that cool car.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's interested, it's called Exorcism of Fleet Marish. It's streaming on, I think it's on Tubi, but it's also on Horror Central on YouTube. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did a bunch of the close-ups for like horror effects and stuff like that. And so, you know, we have more of an excuse. So it was like a really tiny budget. As to why these things are so poorly planned, it's a mystery. I think James Gunn is the one, Troma alumni.
Yeah.
By the way. Yeah. Who was really kind of like cracked down on that and saying like, fucking guys, dude, we need a rock solid script before we shoot, you know?
Yeah. And stop leaving the third act open to just like, oh, we got to tie it into this series on TV or the next movie or whatever. Like, just tell a good story. Okay.
I don't know what that was. It could partially be that because movies are slow to make, that they wanted things open to react to current events so that the film seems fresh. But anyone who's written a lot can tell you, like, if you like, there's not that many stories. A lot of them are just were sort of variations of the same type of story.
Hero with 1,000 faces, right? Like,
yeah.
It's just,
and if you make a rock solid story and it's not riddled with pop references of the newest band or the newest, who cares? Like, you know, like if you just make a solid story with something like Superman is the pull. You don't need to pull a Tarantino or Kevin Smith and have all these other shitty pop references of contemporary events going on.
Not that they don't work in their movies, but it's not relevant to that particular narrative, right?
No, that's their thing, and they're brilliant at it. But why would you do it for this? That's not what they do. They're independent filmmakers. They're actual artists.
Right.
Like, why would you do that? And also, my point is that the studios don't do it well.
Yeah. Well, again, it comes back to the flexibility for the director. If the director has this really rigid script, they can't do things to kind of smooth out the narrative to make it make sense. It just ends up feeling like it's shoehorned into the script, and it just feels inauthentic and fake. And your audience is going to know. Your audience is going to know. They see through that. They see through it in social media, and they certainly see through it in TV shows and movies. There's no question in my mind, you know? Yeah. But back to what you said earlier about pickup shots and stuff. Big difference between documentary versus narrative, right? Doing pickup shots in a narrative, you have a very limited time, and less so with an independent piece, more so with a main Hollywood feature. Because if you got to do a pickup 6 months later in a main Hollywood feature, your main person could look completely different by then because they have another obligation. They're under contract for another character, and now you're going to have to put them in a wig. You're going to have to change, like, they could be physically different looking. You know what I mean? You're going to
remember that Henry Cable shot. I forget which was it, Batman versus Superman or Justice League. Anyway, he was like, he comes to the set. He's like, okay, I'm ready to shoot. He's got this huge mustache. I think it was from one of the Mission Impossibles.
Yes.
And they're like, you gotta fucking shave that. He's like, no, I can't. I cannot. I'm on another shoot. And so they had to like CG off the mustache, and he gives this smile, and it's like, it's so horrible looking, you know?
Yeah.
But it's that kind of stuff. It's like, dude, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do something different.
Yeah, seriously, take a different shot. Show them off like profile where you don't really see it or something, you know, like anything.
Something, I don't know. But take an existing shot and rotoscope it, you know.
Yeah.
There's got to be a shot of him smiling, and you're, you know,
there's some
100 hours of raw footage or whatever, you know.
There's some people that can do magic in post. Like, if you just need to do like a motion capture and like the physical body, you could do something with the face and blend it. Absolutely. But I mean, to your point earlier, it's a huge difference. Like when you're doing a documentary, it's understood that the research is done over time. So if you and I physically change a little bit, not a big deal, because that's not the subject. The subject is the thing that we're researching and we're delving into and we're examining. So, but when you're talking about a narrative, people want to see that they're just going to be like this gross inconsistency in timeline, and it takes you out of the place that you're supposed to be imagining that you're at.
Well, like if we look at Video Dreams, and for those of you who don't know, Video Dreams is like our 30-year journey to get on the shelf at Blockbuster and be direct-to-video filmmakers and beyond. What happens when that dream doesn't make sense? But it's 30 years. It's from when we're like 17, 16 to 17, 18, somewhere around there, right? Till now.
Today. Yeah.
And you could see us, and I've had friends who've watched it, and they're like, they start watching it, and they're like, wait, is that Tom? Is that Tim? And then like 20 minutes later, they're like, oh yeah, oh that's Tim. Oh wow, you know. And then it's like eventually you go up through time, you know. So for people who notice, it's actually kind of a trip.
It's wild, dude. I don't recognize myself at 19. I'm like, who the hell? Oh my God, that's me.
Yeah, but for the doc, it's using the time as a production value, because for some people it is profound to squeeze 30 years into 83 minutes and to be able to tell a story with real arcs and have it be like truthful, you know? So I think it's going to be a trip. And let me say this real quick. We're going to have some really cool announcements. We got into, I guess I shouldn't say the name of the festival yet, but it's a British Independent Film Award qualifying festival. So we'll announce the name later.
It's not official yet, so that's why.
It's not official yet, but I did want to say, like, man, that's huge for us. And the festival run with Video Dreams Tim and I entered 88 festivals. It's going to hit 90 at some point, and it's been really interesting. Our acceptance rate is just dipped below 70%, about 60 something, which is incredibly high. Usually it's 30%. Ours is closer to 70. I have noticed lately, it's like we won't get into something, we will get into something. So Popcorn Frights, we were really hoping we got into, didn't get into that, but we got into Phantasmagoria, which is a UK film festival. Mm-hmm. And then, like, we didn't get into Genre Blast, but we got into Experimental Brazil, and we won what's it
Merit?
called?
I think,
honorable mention award. So it's been really fascinating, wildly unpredictable, but I can't figure it out.
Yeah,
you know, but it has to do with whatever the festival feels like programming that year, and definitely the quality of your film and where they put it. But it's
also who looks at it, right? Like. It has to resonate with the person that's reviewing it. I think we talked about that with festivals like that have, you know, a council that reviews stuff and, you know, only has so many eyes and ears on their piece. And it's, you know, fingers crossed we keep getting in front of the right person in these various festivals that it resonates with them. They're like, yeah, this needs a second look, or we need to screen this. This is fun. This is a lot of fun to watch, and it's an interesting story, and let's go, you know?
Yeah. So far, it's been a lot of film festivals outside of the United States who've been truly fascinated by Video Dreams. And I mean, I guess I should say 50-50, but I've been pleasantly surprised. And it's fun to think of you and I gaining a reputation outside of the United States. You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, a lot of fun knowing that we're building an audience there. And that means that the next run we do, there'll be definitely a second look just based on the fact that they accepted the first time Video Dreams, and then the next project we're working on, like, well, they'll take a second look and be like, oh, what else these guys working on, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's it'll be curious to see how things work out, you know. But I don't know. It's life is funny that way. When I lived in Connecticut, we did get some decent. We got into a few decent film festivals with some of our earlier projects, but we weren't killing it. New York. When I moved to New York, oddly, it was more welcoming. And people often say that that's like one of the toughest places, and it is. But like, I don't know. It's weird. I've had more success in New York than I did in Connecticut.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it has to do with opportunity. There's more opportunity here, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's weird though. I've always Connecticut's kind of like a middle ground between Boston and New York City proper, you know, and
yeah,
it's hit or miss. And I feel like that's one of the reasons that like a major movie scene never really popped there, because people really want things to happen. They're gonna travel to the city for it, you know, one or the other. And if they need the footage or they need connections or connectivity, you know. But
yeah, I always felt like Connecticut, the film community in Connecticut, the one that was associated with like the political arm of, you know, they were never interested in low and no budget.
Mm-hmm.
We never made it up to a level where they really cared. And I would say at a time, it was probably myself and us, and then probably Mike Mangelo and just a few other filmmakers that were kind of known. There wasn't that many known filmmakers. We had just done a lot of projects. I'm not saying we were high profile or anything.
Right.
But we never none of us qualified for any of the benefits. It's because Connecticut wanted the New York production or the Boston production to shoot Connecticut for cheap or something for tax rebates.
Right.
So they never did anything for the local filmmakers. And there really wasn't an edifice there. There was no structure. You were kind of king of the anthill. But at least in New York, you could, got in with Trauma, got in with Lloyd, got to make films with him,
yep.
You know? So got in at NBC Universal and even College Humor, places like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just, there's more industry here, you know?
And we've got some stuff on the horizon, right? We've got some more announcements later this month and into August, and September is going to pop. That's going to be a big month for what we get accepted into, what festivals with the festival run. There'll be another surge of like 15 to 20 festivals easily between now and the end of September, if not more. I forget the exact number that we've got in the next 60 days, but it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot more chatter in socials and everything, and invariably on the podcast as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to hopefully maintaining that high level of acceptance rate. But again, if it's 30% or better, I mean, we're tracking the way we were before. And at 90 festivals, if we get accepted into 30, that's phenomenal to me. That's just...
Yeah, I think VHS2 had, I think it was about 30 cities we played in, and it won 23 awards.
Yep.
Partially because of certain festivals you get like a best composer win.
Yeah.
And then like there'd be a best film win, stuff like that. So some festivals had multiple awards, so that was pretty cool. Anyway, I got to wrap it up.
Yeah. I was just going to say that the time is of the essence today. We have very little window, but we'll have more updates super soon. In fact, we might just continue this conversation next week. So thanks for checking in with us, guys, and we'll check you next time.